A Tall and Small Collection, Season 2, Chapter 36, and Everyone Needs a Little Hero, Chapter 24, Saving Our Hero, Part 3. Ashlyn, eyes wide, watched as Casper himself stepped out from behind the electrical cover and onto the kitchen counter. She glimpsed two small hands try and tug him backwards, but they did not succeed. They did not follow after him, but undoubtedly were listening with bated breath by the door. "Please," said Casper. "You've earned my trust. Now, help me save my son." Ashlyn nodded as slowly as possible and dared to kneel in front of the borrowers, so she was at eye level with all of them. She dared not make any kind of fast movement, terrified she might scare away the head of the Rafters family. She felt herself tremble and, based on how Casper was standing, he was trembling too. Soren, Dorian, and Ray were all staring wide-eyed and stock-still, not sure whether to watch Ashlyn or to watch Casper. Regardless, all parties refused to back away. This was too important. Obviously, feeling the intense pressure, Casper was the one who broke the silence between them first. "So, what is your plan? How do you propose getting Hero back?" asked Casper. Ashlyn took a breath and glanced to Soren and his brothers before addressing Casper's question. "We don't have a single plan. We were hoping to go over that once we got back here, but I do have a few ideas," said Ashlyn. Soren nodded, looking at Ashlyn reassuringly. "As do I," he stated. "The main thing that I think is important is having two separate teams. We need borrowers in the walls to go to the apartment and try to get Hero back from the human girl while we run interference and try to catch the family before they leave. We probably will also need a borrower to go grab Hero, so we need a team of two doing that." Ashlyn nodded. "My idea precisely," she said. Casper looked from Ashlyn to Soren in rapid succession, his eyes looking quizzical and skeptical. "Who is the dual team?" asked Casper. "I thought it might be Soren and I," said Ashlyn. Soren nodded his agreement. At that point, however, Ray spoke up. "No, I want to do it," said Ray. He pulled the blanket off of his shoulders and stood boldly. All eyes turned to him, and even the Rafters children dared to peer out from the cover of the wall to look at Ray. "He's my friend. I promised him I would come back. I need to do it." "Ray, this is going to be dangerous," said Soren. "Besides, you need to lead the way to the apartment for the rest of us. We don't know where Hero is, but you do." Ray, obviously ready to argue, looked from Soren to Ashlyn, desperation in his eyes. "Ashlyn?" "Ray, any other time I would agree with you, but Soren is right. You're the only one who knows where Hero is. Your job is way more important right now. You're the only one who can lead them through the walls to get to the apartment where Hero is," said Ashlyn. Ashlyn, in a daring moment, reached up and gently laid her fingertip on Ray's shoe. "We're counting on you, and so is Hero. Now, we don't have any time to waste. Do you need any of your inventions?" Ray nodded and gestured for Ashlyn to turn her hand over so he could climb on. Casper took a few steps back, looking slightly faint as he watched Ray step onto Ashlyn's hand. "We'll be right back," said Ashlyn before standing up once again and ducking around the corner with Ray. The moment Ashlyn was out of sight, Caspar staggered back toward the wall and leaned against it. His children, seeing the coast was clear for the moment, darted out onto the counter to look at their father. "Dad, what are you thinking? Revealing yourself to that human?" demanded Atlas, keeping his voice low. "Are you okay?" asked Callie. Tyron said nothing and, instead, looked back at the corner of the wall and then to Dorian and his family. Maisie, sensing something was amiss, was whimpering and toddled forward into Soren's arms. He held her tight to his chest as he looked at Caspar. "Thank you for trusting her, even if it is just for now," said Soren. Caspar looked Soren in the eye and nodded subtly. The sound of approaching footsteps was obvious in the apartment. Anyone could hear a pin drop onto the floor within this void of sound and hear it clear as a bell. As the footsteps approached, none of the Raptor's children retreated, staying by their father's side as he continued to breathe deeply and lean against the wall. Ashlyn and Ray came back a minute later. Ray's hips and back were loaded with lightweight gizmos and gadgets he had undoubtedly created. He stepped back onto the counter wordlessly and looked at the Raptors. "Ready?" he asked. Everyone gave a tentative nod, but Dorian was the one who spoke up. "Wait, how are we going to communicate? How will we know what's going on?" Dorian's question was a legitimate one, and Ray had an answer. "Two things. One, the lights. We can jiggle the wires and make the lights in public areas flicker. Two, I have this," stated Ray as he pointed to a small box on his back. "It emits a sound that is high-pitched and very irritating. We can use it between us borrowers as well as Ashlyn and the other humans. Really high means panic. Low means we're good. If I understood them correctly, they're leaving today. So, at the end of the day, if we don't hear anything, we should come back." Everyone nodded, comprehending what it was that they would be doing next. They steeled their nerves, and, with every ounce of courage and determination they possessed, the Raptors and Dorian followed Ray into the walls, while Soren stepped onto Ashlyn's hand, Maisie in his arms. They immediately headed for the front door. Ashlyn slipped on a jacket with zippable pockets and slid Maisie safely inside of her play box. This was going to be dangerous, and bringing Maisie was going to put everyone in danger. Soren, before vanishing into Ashlyn's hood, looked up at Ashlyn, concern in his hazel eyes. "Ashlyn, what if we don't get him? We're not going to fail. We're going to get him back, and he's going to be fine," said Ashlyn, bringing Soren up just long enough to kiss his chest before setting him on her shoulder for him to hide in the folds of the hood. Deep down, Ashlyn had the same fears, but dared not say anything out loud. They had to get Hero back. They just had to. Ray wasn't sure what he was feeling, but he knew he couldn't let himself feel anything at that moment. Fear? Like Soren said, use it as a tool to push him to think faster and move quicker. Apprehension? Use it to keep him aware of his surroundings. Sickness? Best to just ignore that one. Ray couldn't imagine what Hero was going through, and he was not looking forward to finding out. What he was eager to do, however, was get his friend back. He led the way at a confident jog through the walls and beams, pausing only to glance over his shoulder to make sure everyone was still behind him. Dorian, his older brother, was at his side the whole way. It felt weird not having Soren beside him, but, in a way, it was a sign of trust. Soren wouldn't have left his brothers alone if he didn't think they could handle the situation. Ray rounded the final corner to the apartment. The moment he laid eyes on the edge, he knew something was horribly wrong. The electrical cover had been pried off. There were obvious scrape marks from some kind of sharp device on the opposite wall. Whatever the girl was hoping to find, she thankfully hadn't achieved her goal. For a moment, Ray wondered if some kind of device had been placed on the other side to take a video or picture of the hole. He didn't want to take any chances. He motioned for the others to stop for a moment as he fished out his hook. He spun it a few times around, before letting it fly through the air directly in front of that spot that was exposed to the outside world. Flash! Sure enough, there it was. Something just took a picture as the hook whirred past. Ray immediately felt the ground tremor, and he thought he knew what it meant. He looked back over his shoulder at his wide-eyed companions. "Back up, back up, back up!" Ray hissed. The sound of footsteps caught their attention, and they started backing down the hallway as fast as possible. Ray had just managed to make it around the corner when there was an odd scraping sound and another flash that illuminated the walls. Ray's heart was in his throat, and he was sure that everyone else was feeling the exact same way. Ray took several deep breaths to calm himself down before re-strategizing. "We've got to go up," he whispered, as he pointed to some of the secured wiring along the edge of the wall. "She can't get to us up high, and she probably doesn't know we can peek through the trim." Casper, eyes hardened and obviously tense from the near encounter, simply nodded and directed his children to ascend the line, while Dorian and Ray climbed the nearby cords. Casper's mind was racing with incoherent thoughts. He was having a hard time processing more than a few words at a time, and instead he relied on his instincts to help guide him all the way up the wall. The fear he felt for his children, especially Hero, was what drove him, keeping him focused. What kind of devious human would set up something to take a picture of them? Well, wouldn't all of them? Did this one event alone confirm all of his greatest fears about humans? And yet, his mind thought about Soren's family and Ashlyn. It was when he saw Ray step willingly onto Ashlyn's hand after asking her without words to take him to his inventions and equipment that seemed to be the deviating factor. And what about these humans that Hero supposedly talked to? Weren't they also exceptions to the rule? He couldn't think about that kind of stuff now. This was a debate for another day. He followed behind Ray and crept along the beams until he reached the piece of trim that was loose. With the youngest of Soren's brothers leading the way, Ray stepped forward and peered through the smallest crack he could make without being noticed. Tyron and Atlas were next, and they staggered themselves around Ray so they too could see down into the room. "She's trying to get another picture on the wall," whispered Atlas, letting his father know what was going on. This was, in a way, a good thing. It meant that she was looking elsewhere and not paying attention to the trim where they were all gathered. "I have an idea," muttered Atlas. "It's not the best, but hear me out. If she is distracted, we might have a chance to get Hero out of the room. If she thinks she can catch us, she won't be focused on Hero." Casper did not like this idea in the slightest. The thought of his children running around, possibly getting their picture taken, or worse, caught, made his stomach churn. Still, it was a decent plan. Where would we distract? Try and get onto the shelves or pound against the walls on the drywall parts? Asked Dorian. "Yeah, if she thinks she's hearing someone running around at the walls, she's going to think she can catch someone else," explained Atlas. I don't know," doubted Tyron. "What if she manages to catch one of us?" Atlas didn't have an answer, but Ray did. "Then at least we'll know where she's hiding Hero. We don't know where he is in the room right now," said Ray. "I'm not saying get caught, but it isn't the end of the world if it happens. The big question is, where do we think he's being kept?" Most likely one of the cabinets or boxes on her bed, muttered Callie. So we'll try to get her to move away from there so Callie can take a look? No, not Callie. I'll do it, said Casper, but his daughter shot him a daring look. Dad, I'm faster and quieter. I'll be there and back in no time. Plus, we don't have any more time to discuss this. Trust me, said Callie. Casper opened his mouth to argue, but knew his daughter was right. He was not as nimble as he once was. It was decided. It was risky, but it was their only immediate solution. Casper, Atlas, Tyron, Dorian, and Ray all belayed down the wall at different parts of the room and began bouncing on their line, pounding different rhythms around the wall, one at a time. Callie stayed behind to call out when someone needed to move higher or lower, cueing everyone like some kind of elaborate dance. Sure enough, the girl looked around as Casper's small running-like thuds reached her ears. She silently crept around the side of the room and snagged another jar before heading over to the wall and listening. Dad, stop, called Callie. Ray, you're up. Ray, a little further away, began scraping his shoes against the drywall, making some of it crumble away with the roughness of his shoes. The girl's attention was redirected immediately to the new set of scurrying. One by one, they started leading her away from the drawers. It was time. Callie lowered herself down the interior wall and began making her way toward the opened electrical cover. Sadly, they were out of time. Hero could hear the girl, Lily, rummaging around the room. He heard things slamming into boxes and her cursing under her breath. He curled tighter in on himself, which only made him wince in pain. He had just had the scariest encounter of his life moments ago when he had attempted to run into the drawer's side to knock it open. The drawer had been ripped open, sending him flying and slamming into the wall he had just been beating on. Before he could get up, Lily had grabbed the back of his shirt and hoisted him up into the air. His collar tightened around his throat, threatening to choke him. He tried talking again, asking her to let him go, but it only made her laugh. Why would I do something like that? You're the find of the century, and probably the only cool thing I'll have where I'm going. Speaking of which, I need to get a box ready for you, said Lily. Hero choked back a sob. Please, I just want to go home. Please, just let me go. The girl's smile widened wickedly. Sure thing, she said, just as she released the back of his shirt. Hero immediately began free-falling toward the ground. No! Hero screamed involuntarily, only to slam into a slightly padded surface, which instantly curled in on him, squeezing him too tight. What? I thought you wanted to be let go, cackled Lily, as she shoved Hero back into the desk and closed it roughly. Hero didn't want to see the bruises on his body. He knew they would look like fingers. He knew he didn't have a chance to get out on his own. But, as he listened now, he heard her rummaging around, muttering to herself about hearing something in the walls. The walls. Hero couldn't believe the relief he felt when he heard this. Did it mean that the others were coming for him? Did that mean he was going to be rescued? Wait, that meant... A sob escaped Hero's lips as he suddenly realized what a rescue mission meant. It meant his parents knew. It meant his family knew. They undoubtedly all learned his most precious secret about his human friends. What were they going to say? Were they going to be disappointed? Were they going to punish him? Were his parents even the ones coming to save him? Would they want him, now that he's been seen, captured? It was the Rafters' way that kept everyone safe, avoiding being seen at all costs. He broke his family's most severe law. Not only that, but the rest of the borrower community was bound to know about what happened. Hiro shrank further in on himself. His eyes became redder and redder, tears refusing to relieve him. He was so thirsty. He was so tired. He was so afraid that he was going to be rescued only to be turned away from the people who he wanted to see more than anyone else in the world. Suddenly, a new voice came in. "Lily, it's time. Get your stuff and let's go," said the other female voice, most likely her mother. "Oh no, please no." Hiro whimpered and felt the drawer jerk open and fingers encase him. "Time to go, bud," said Lily as she hoisted the little ball of Hiro out of the drawer and into a small cardboard box, which she slipped into her backpack. This was it. This was going to be his life now. Ray saw it all. He had come back to call out different positions for the others while Callie went down to explore the room to find Hiro. He watched as the girl pulled Hiro out of the bedside drawer and placed him into a small cardboard box before shoving that same box into her backpack. She was heading for the door, and Ray knew he needed to act. "Guys, she has him. She's leaving," called Ray through the walls. He heard the others calling back, but the blood pumping in Ray's ears was making it hard to hear. One thing was clear, though. He needed to get down to that backpack. He needed to go now. But how? He couldn't go there without backup, but every second wasted was time Hiro needed to be rescued. Then it came to him, as if he'd been struck by lightning. Sam. Sam was in the elevator. He had backup. "I'm going to get him back," Ray shouted, as he sprinted away toward the elevator shaft. Springing into action, Ray sprinted as fast as his legs would carry him through the beams and boards toward the elevator. He heard the other rafters and his brother calling after him, but they would have to catch up. Ray was on a mission. It was now or never. His lungs screamed in protest as he ran relentlessly. He could only hope he was going to get there in time. Every muscle fiber burned as he came to his final stop, and, with what luck he had, it was on its way up. It hadn't been called for the girl yet. The elevator was hurtling toward him. He knew he didn't have time to second-guess himself. Knowing it would hurt, Ray hoped he had timed his jump just right. Just as the gears screeched loudly beside him, Ray sprinted forward and leapt. He was suspended in mid-air for only a second before the elevator crashed into him from below. His body throbbed in momentary distress, but nothing was broken. Good. Ray shimmied over to the air vent that was in the top of the elevator and peered down. Yes! There was Sam. He was in the corner, and there was a couple standing in front of him. Ray assumed those two must be the ones getting off of the elevator. The elevator dinged, and the couple stepped out. Now or never. Ray slipped between the vent grates, secured his hook, and let himself free fall from the ceiling, hoping the device on his hips would save his life for a second time. "Sam!" Ray shouted as he fell further and further to the ground. Sam looked around wildly at the sudden shout of his name and spotted Ray. It was unnerving at first, seeing Sam step forward just under Ray as he continued to plummet toward the ground, but Ray was thankful for the gentle hands that cupped him as he landed in Sam's palms. "Ray, are you—" "Sam, I don't have time to explain," interrupted Ray as he tugged his line free from his body and secured the new one to his hips. "The girl is on her way here. I need you to put me into the main compartment of her backpack, okay? Slip me in there as quietly as possible, then follow her out of the building. We'll need you to get us when I get Hiro free. Also, pull that line down. She'll notice. Got it?" Sam's eyes, wide with surprise, nodded as he readjusted his hands so Ray could stand on just one, and pulled the line he used to get down so it snapped. There, much less conspicuous. So, she's coming? Asked Sam quietly. Ray nodded and crouched in Sam's palm. Yes, now, keep me hidden in your pocket and then slip me into her bag, said Ray. Then follow her out, echoed Sam. Got it. Ray nodded and focused himself as Sam very slowly began to put Ray into his pocket. And Sam, said Ray. Thanks. Sam smiled broadly, eyes bright at the compliment. Let's save our friend, he said. Then, as the elevator lowered and stopped at the next floor, Sam carefully slipped the hand Ray was hiding in into his pocket. The warmth of the pocket in Sam's hand was sweltering, especially when combined with Ray having sprinted the whole way there. He heard a slight clicking sound, which sounded like when Ashlyn typed on her phone. Sam was probably letting Ashlyn know what was going on. Ray wondered where his brother and Ashlyn were, but quickly shook his thoughts out of his head. He couldn't think about that right now. He needed to focus. The elevator doors opened once more, and Ray felt his heart rate spike uncomfortably high. He could feel his pulse in the tips of his fingers and toes. When did he breathe deeply last? He wasn't sure. What he did know was that Sam shuffled forward, muttering a polite, "Excuse me," before shuffling back. What had he done? Ray wasn't sure. He couldn't see beyond the palm of the young boy and the pocket fabric. Then the fingers curled ever so slightly and began to lift. Ray's mouth was dry as a desert. Here went everything. Sam pulled Ray out and covered him with his right hand. The world turned upside down just for a moment as Sam transferred Ray from one hand to the other. Ray, however, was ready for anything and made the awkward squirm seamlessly. Then Ray was exposed to the open air. He spotted 2 other boys standing in front of Sam, as well as one woman who looked to be their mother. And there, in front of he and Sam both, was Lily. Just being near her again made Ray want to jab another pin into her finger, but he couldn't think about that now. With uncanny fluidity, Sam reached forward, like he was stretching, and held Ray up to a narrow opening in the backpack. Ray flashed Sam a momentary smile before grabbing the edge of the fabric and slipping into the bag. Ray was instantly plunged into darkness. What little light made it through the fabric of the bag was dark purple. Not daring to use his light, Ray crouched among the pieces of clothing and other miscellaneous objects, trying hard not to sink beneath the items of clothing as he carefully maneuvered further into the bag. The jolt of the elevator threw him off balance, but thankfully, the walking of the girl was consistent enough for Ray to time his crawling through the bag. His heart was beating 1,000,000 miles a minute, making his chest ache. He had a fear that the girl would feel him moving around or hear him at any point, but he knew he had no time to waste. Summoning his voice, he called out quietly, "Hero! Hero, it's me! Where are you? Can you hear me?" From outside the backpack, there was a loud clattering sound. Ray held his breath as he felt the bag jolt suddenly, slamming him against the back. He froze completely. No, why was she stopping? "Oh, sorry about that." Ray heard someone, a woman, apologize. It wasn't Ashlyn, though. It was someone new. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" "Yes, absolutely. Here, let me help," replied another female voice. Then a much louder voice, who Ray recognized immediately as Lily, spoke. "Mom, I'm going to the car," she mumbled. "Lily, don't be rude. Help me pick these things up," scolded the mother. Ray heard Lily groan as she knelt, jostling him even more inside of the bag, as she began to help. "Oh, here, let me help you with that." Ray felt the anxiousness ease just for a moment as he recognized Ashlyn's voice. That meant she and Soren were there. If he could just get Hero, they could easily get out of here. "Are you all new here?" asked Ashlyn, obviously trying to stall for more time. No, actually, we're moving out today. Getting everything packed up and heading for the country," replied the woman, who was probably the mother. Ray listened to the two of them conversing, knowing he had maybe a minute left. Hoping Lily was distracted enough, he struggled through the rest of the clothes and delved deeper into the bag until he hit something solid. A box. Ray's heart spiked as he wiggled down beside the box and gave a few brief taps to the outside. "Hero! Hero, it's me! It's Ray! We've come to rescue you!" hissed Ray, keeping his voice low so no one other than his friend could hear him. Hands shaking, he gripped the top of the box and began to lift. It gave just a little, but Ray suddenly realized he was not strong enough on his own to get the box opened. Ray's heart sank when he didn't hear a reply. Was Hero all right? Was he injured? "Hero, are you okay? Can you hear me?" asked Ray. "Come on, I need your help. You've got to help me lift the box lid." Then he heard a small sniffle from inside the box. Relief spread through the teenage borrower like the warmth of a hot shower. Hero was all right. "No one needs my help," muttered Hero, his voice muffled by the box. Confusion swept over Ray. "What?" "No one needs me. I messed up. I thought humans were different. I thought..." Ray heard Hero sniff as he stifled a sob. "My family is going to hate me. I broke the rules. I disobeyed them. They're so disappointed in me. I know it. Just go. I deserve being a pet." Ray couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What?" he demanded, raising his voice a little louder than he wanted. He put himself in check before speaking again. "Hero, get a grip on yourself. Your family doesn't hate you. They're here, trying to get you back. We all are. Ashlyn, Soren, Dorian, Tyron, Callie, your dad, Eliza, Sam. We want you home." There was a sound of shuffling. What? "Listen, Hero, we don't have a lot of time, but we are all working together to rescue you. You learned the hard way that humans aren't all good, sure, but it's because of you that your family is working with us and your human friends. You did that, Hero," said Ray. "Now, I need your help. You brought us together, but you have to help yourself. Didn't you want to live up to your name? Then do it." But no buts. What kind of hero gives up when things are looking rough? What kind of hero are you choosing to be right now?" There was a massive jolt, throwing Ray off to one side of the backpack, away from the box. The bag jostled again, and Ray was thrown against the box. His head slammed into the cardboard, and he suddenly felt a warm, wet liquid dripping from his eyebrow, where it was stinging. Ray wiped it away and grabbed the edge of the lid once more. "Come on, Hero, please," pleaded Ray, as he began to lift with all of his might against the lid. It budged ever so slightly. Was his speech enough? Was Hero giving up? Was he really just going to give up? Then the lid began to lift. Together, Hero and Ray began prying open the box as the rhythmic walking of Lily picked up once again. Ray knew they didn't have much time left. Ray pushed out all of his other senses and focused on opening the box. He couldn't think about what Ashlyn was saying to try and get the other humans to stop. He couldn't think about the stinging above his eye, or the way he now had to keep his eye closed to keep from blood getting into it. With all of their might, the boys opened the box barely an inch, which was just enough. Ray held out his hand and helped Hiro out of the box, grasping his forearm and refusing to let go. He had already let go once before, and he wasn't going to do it again. Hiro slid out of the cardboard container, suppressing a yelp of pain as he hit the cloth base. Ray, muscles straining, pulled the lid back over the top of the box before turning to his friend. Even in the darkness, Ray knew Hiro looked rough, but at least he was alive. Ray hugged his friend, noting how Hiro winced in pain, before gesturing to their way out. The zigzag pattern the zipper made out of light led their way to the entrance. Ray could see glimpses of clear blue sky. They were outside. He suppressed the bile in the back of his throat as he fought his way to the entrance, making sure Hiro was right behind him the whole way. Once by the entrance, he turned around and wrapped his security line around Hiro and fastened him in. "Hang on tight. We're going to jump, okay?" said Ray. Hiro, shaking slightly, nodded as he stood beside Ray at the entrance of the bag. "On my mark. Ready?" Ray glanced around and peered out of the bag ever so slightly. He saw the car nearby and saw their opportunity. He looked at Hiro and nodded, gripping onto his friend tightly. As Lily swung her bag off of her shoulder, it was nearly horizontal to the ground. "Now!" hissed Ray. He secured the line, and the two of them fell out of the bag, whizzing to the ground at an incredible speed. They swung through the air, biting their tongues to keep from screaming, as the momentum of Lily getting into the car swung the line under the car. Ray pulled the emergency lever, and they came to a screeching halt an inch above the ground as they continued to swing under the car. Ray pulled out his dagger and cut the line, making the two of them tumble further under the car, so they were directly under it. Both boys winced as they made contact with the cracked asphalt, skidding to a stop after tumbling nearly a foot in an embraced mass. Ray was on his feet in an instant and yanked Hiro to his feet as he forced the two of them to sprint to the back right tire. The fear was that the girl would notice and immediately look under the car, at which point the two of them would be completely exposed. Their hearts were pounding out of their chests. Neither of them dared to breathe as they crouched by the back tire that stank of burned rubber. The sound of the car doors slammed shut, and the engine roared like a monster above them. The boys winced and clenched their teeth as they pressed their palms to their ears. The car rolled back a few inches before creeping forward and driving away. For a moment, Ray and Hiro were both completely exposed under the clear blue sky. They had barely breathed the entire time, and now they were free. Their moment of triumph was eclipsed by an immense shadow. Hiro immediately shrank back as Ray whipped around, prepared to stab, when he recognized the face of the human above them. "Sam!" Ray called. He followed them like he had asked. "Hiro, look, it's Sam." Ray looked back to see Hiro cowering behind him, his once bright green eyes filled with involuntary terror as he gazed up at his closest human friend. Ray understood exactly how Hiro felt, but he couldn't talk Hiro down at the moment. For now, they needed to get inside. "You two okay?" asked Sam as he knelt down in front of them. "Yeah, but we need to get inside. Could you—" Ray didn't want to say, "pick us up," because of how Hiro was reacting, but Sam seemed to understand. He laid his palms down onto the ground, and Ray guided a trembling Hiro into Sam's hand. With the utmost care, Sam slipped the two of them into his pocket before turning back to the building and scurrying back. Ray could not hold Hiro close enough to muffle the borrower teen's sobs of relief. He dared not try and pry himself away, even as he was forced to close his eye once again as the blood trickled over it. Sam, did you... Ray recognized Ashlyn's voice in an instant. He heard her sigh of relief. Everything good? Asked the other human voice, which undoubtedly belonged to Eliza. Thank the Almighty. Well, I'm glad. I expect an update to make sure everyone is all right. Sure thing, replied Ashlyn. Until then, let's get back up to my apartment. The jostling started up again, and soon the clattering of the elevator door shut behind them. At once, Ray heard Soren's voice. Ray, are you okay? Called Soren. Ray didn't want to let go of Hiro, so he just called out. Yes, we're okay. He looked at Hiro and squeezed him a little tighter, speaking much softer now. We're okay. They all got off of the elevator and entered Ashlyn's apartment where, with the utmost care, Sam carefully pulled out Ray and Hiro, setting them on the kitchen counter as Ashlyn instructed. Soren was already on the counter, now fearlessly standing in front of Sam, whose eyes were blown wide open at seeing yet another hand-sized person who was much older than him. Soren rushed over before Sam even had a chance to retract his hands and pulled the two boys in for an embrace, immediately evaluating them. Ray, your eye, he said, his voice a blend of scolding and concern. I'm okay, muttered Ray, as he finally relinquished his grip on Hiro and wiped away the blood from his eye. Hiro, are you okay? Hiro, shaking violently, wrapped his arms round his body and kept his eyes firmly fixed onto the counter. Everything and nothing was running through his mind, and his body responded by shivering uncomfortably. Ashlyn, noticing this, grabbed the same blanket Ray was wrapped in earlier and went to drape it over Hiro's shoulders, when Hiro jolted away violently from her fingers. Sorry, he mumbled, immediately realizing what he had done. Ashlyn smiled gently, lips tugging into a sad grin, as she nodded. It's okay, she said, still holding out the blanket for the borrower boy. Soren took it gingerly and wrapped it around Hiro, who had thick, warm tears spilling from his eyes, exhausting the last bit of moisture from his body. My family, they're going to be, stuttered Hiro. They're going to be so thankful that you're okay, interjected Soren, kneeling and making sure Hiro looked into his hazel eyes. Hiro? Asked Sam, immediately making Hiro jump and pull the blanket further around his shoulders. I'm glad you're okay too. I was really scared for you. We all are, chimed in Ashlyn, who had just returned with Maisie, who clutched onto Ashlyn's thumb as though it were her best friend, while babbling on about Bunny. Hiro choked on another sob and wiped his eyes, which refused to stop leaking tears. But I broke. Hiro. The teenage boy startled and whimpered as he looked to the electrical cover. All eyes, human and borrower alike, turned to see Casper sprinting out of the wall toward his son, completely disregarding the fact that Sam was a mere foot away from the gathered borrowers. In an instant, Casper had his arms thrown around his son, clutching onto him for dear life, which only made the young teen sob harder. One by one, the other Rafters children emerged and joined the huddle with Hiro at the center, Dorian bringing up the rear. Dad, I'm so sorry, sobbed Hiro, his muffled voice barely audible. Shh, you're okay. I'm glad you're okay. You're safe now, mumbled Casper over and over. Ashlyn, glancing over at Sam, gestured for the two of them to step away as Soren evaluated his youngest brother's injuries, and as the Rafters huddled around the youngest boy. Just before they left, however, Casper called out, much to everyone's surprise. Thank you, Sam. Sam, who was obviously still fascinated with the group of small people on Ashland's counter, merely smiled and nodded as he and Ashlyn ducked around the corner. Ashlyn let Sam out, promising that she would let him know anything as soon as she did about Hero and Ray's condition, before going and sitting back on the couch. All of the borrowers, coming down from the panic, felt a wave of exhaustion come over them. Soren helped bandage Ray's eye, which was cut just above his brow, as the rafters continued to check over Hero. Soren did need to look carefully to see the deep bruises on Hero's leg and torso, and that they looked like fingers, and that he was still hanging his head in shame, muttering his apologies over and over again to his family. After half an hour, Soren retrieved some water for everyone, as they sat together and recovered. It was unspoken that what happened would be discussed later among the rafters, but the only thing that mattered among them now was how grateful they were that they were safe and together once again. Ashlyn returned after a time, offering more medical supplies and anything they would need, but Casper politely declined. "We need to make our way home," he said politely. "And thank you as well, all of you. I won't forget this." He looked to Soren, Ray, Dorian, and, finally, Ashlyn. With that, the rafters vanished back into the walls without another word, while Ashlyn helped Soren, the boys, and Maisie back over to the couch. Exhaustion plagued all of them, and, before too long, they had all fallen asleep on the couch together as the sun set on the day. The same was said of Hero and his family. While Hero's mother showered him with kisses and mutterings of how grateful she was that he was home, Hero knew this would all lead to some kind of conversation soon. He felt ashamed and embarrassed, a crushing guilt settling over him as he shuffled off to his room at the end of the evening, barely picking at his food, his favorite dinner. How could he have been so wrong? What else was he wrong about? There was one thing Hero was sure about, however, and that was that he couldn't live up to his own name if he was the one who needed saving. Despite Ray's words about him bringing everyone together, Hero felt as though he had failed everyone. He inhaled deeply and felt his chest tighten and ache with the bruises surrounding his body. Another thing he knew for certain. He was certain he would not be going out to see any humans again. He had enough human contact for a lifetime.